cool. We're talking about Mesos, guys. So I stream quite a bit, and often I get regulars and lurkers and seasonal players come through, and I get the very common question of how do I get more mesos? How do I meso farm? Where's the best place to meso farm? Is there a secret? So I am here to talk about the topic of mesos, how you can go about obtaining them, and kind of cover the current meta, what is currently the popular method of getting mesos, kind of discuss the pros and cons, whether or not it's worth it for you to also Kana farm. The cat's out of the bag. Kana farming is the meta. Anyways, before I go into the video, if you have any questions related to this topic or any other topic in Maple in general, feel free to drop by my stream. I stream on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and I would love to have you there if you have any questions. Okay, back to the video. First off, the numbers in this video, I'll be displaying some meso numbers, etc., etc. We'll primarily focus on the Reboot server. If you want to know the differences between regular and Reboot, I have a link to a video in the description below, and that video goes over like some of the primary differences. Okay, mesos. Quick and dirty. You get mesos by either doing some daily quests, selling boss crystals, or you can kill monsters and pick up bags with your pets. Those are the three ways that you main mesos. Like I don't know if there are any other ways if we're talking about Reboot. Cool. Second method, doing bosses. So you can kill bosses, and there are different kinds of bosses. There are daily bosses and there are weekly bosses. The daily bosses give you anywhere from like 1 mil to 7 mil. I think the highest on the daily boss scale, you get like 7 or 8 mil a day. I don't do daily bosses because I get really lazy about it, but if you do, go for it. It's perfectly fine. You can also sell boss crystals from weekly bosses, which give you a significantly larger chunk of mesos for significantly less time. I typically do a cycle of CPAP, followed by CRA, then HMAG, then NSIG, CPB, or Chaos Pink Bean, Normal Cygnus, the previous one. Then I do Chaos Zakum, and that nets me around 500 mil a week. So that's pretty good. So if you have a pretty strong character, that's another source of income. 500 mil a week. If you don't do CPAP, if you're not strong enough, and you just do from CRA onwards to the end of the list that I listed earlier, that's about 400 to 430 mil, if I remember correctly. Yeah, anyways, you can get anywhere from 400 to 500 mil a week from doing weekly bosses. Let's talk about the real juicy stuff. We're talking about farming mesos. Let me get this out in the open real quick. You can farm mesos on any character. Any character. It doesn't have to be Akana. As long as you're killing monsters and picking up mesos, you're technically farming. Now, there are more efficient ways to farm mesos or to obtain mesos, and we're just going to talk about what the current popular meta is, or the current popular farming meta is, and kind of describe why people do it and whether or not you should do it. So, here's the current meta. The current farming meta is to use Akana, which is a character, to farm in higher level maps. Usually Lachlin, Arcana, and Esfera. Like, people don't really do Morass, but I don't know if I think some people do, but it's not as popular as Lachlin, Arcana, and Esfera. I personally do not farm in Lachlin, and I don't think I've ever experienced farming in the new Lachlin maps. Like, they updated Lachlin mob spawn like a few months ago, and I was already in Arcana, so I'm just going to be talking about Arcana because that's where I got the most experience. Why do you use Akana and why do you not use Akana? Let's go over why you should use Akana. Akana has Kishin in its arsenal, which means you don't need wild totems. If you need wild totems, you need reward points. To get reward points, you need to either kill bosses every day or use Maple Mobile. There are multiple ways to get reward points. Monster explorations. I'm really lazy. I don't like to do that kind of stuff every day just to collect reward points. On top of that, you're limited to 34 hours a month with wild totems. So that's the first reason why you should use Akana. Akana has Kishin. You can farm for extended periods of time without having to worry about totems, which lock you down to 2 hours per slot. 2. Akana has relatively high baseline damage, which allows them to one-hit kill mobs with significantly less funding. 3. Akana has a very good mobbing kit. What do I mean when I say good mobbing kit? I mean they have summons, which they can place around a map, which can kill which then increases their killing radius. So this allows them to kill monsters around the map without them having to physically be there. The benefit of this is that when you're moving around to collect mesos, you're not losing kill efficiency. And the fourth reason is because Kana has good supporting abilities, and it's kind of like a side thing. So even if you're not well geared, you still bring value to harder bossing parties. AKA, you can still join Lucid parties even if you're weak for souls, for just to boss with your friends. So you don't really have to fund it that far to participate in hard bossing parties. That's kind of like a side plus. It's not really why you use Akana. Why do you not want to use Akana? Okay. The first reason is if you find Kana boring, which is subjective, right? If you find Kana boring, don't use Akana. You can just stop watching this video. It doesn't matter. I don't think I can convince you that Kana is fun. The second reason is that maps that Kanas like to farm in are typically full. So your maps like D Cup 1, D Cup, L Cup, SP. If you don't know what these mean, doesn't really matter. We can talk about them. So SP side path, that's the map that we're going to be talking about more. This shouldn't really deter you, as Kanas can farm in a lot of different maps. It's just that most people just pigeonhole into the maps that are in the meta because they give you the best rates, or the best rates or the laziest rotations are typically what Kanas like to go to. And on top of maps always being full, you kind of need to use external means to get to the best maps. So you need to join discords or join a map rotation where people farm 24 hours round the clock. You have 12 people farming round the clock, and they all take 2-hour slots or something like that on every day. It requires you to make friends. It requires you to join guilds or join different discords that rotate farming maps. That's kind of a downside. A lot of people don't like doing that. They just want to log in and farm. Third, people don't like that Kanas have to suicide. So this is the thing that I think Scardo brings up a lot, where if you're farming on Akana, you're losing the efficiency of EXP, meaning the EXP that you gain, you're really not gaining it. It gets cut off. It gets truncated, right? So you could be using that time instead to be training on a main, earning mesos on the side, and also getting EXP so you don't lose any efficiency. I personally don't care. I think the other plus sides of Kana makes it worth it. And 4, Kana's siphon funding from your main. And this is the biggest downside of having a Kana, or having to create a Kana to fund your main. Now, if Kana is your main, this is not even a bother. This doesn't matter, right? But if Kana is not your main, this means you're going to have to set aside some mesos to fund your Kana. Now, I'm going to put up some numbers on the screen. I don't know where I'm going to put it yet. I haven't edited this video, but so let's talk about what are the different amounts of mesos that you have to spend for your Kana. Let's talk about meso gear. This is gonna be a constant. Everybody's gonna want this. 5 bill for 100% meso gear. That's an estimate around 1 bill per item. It's plus or minus. Let's say 5 bill. It's pretty conservative. And then 1 bill for 20% meso inner. This can also vary a lot depending on how lucky you are. You may not even spend a cent on meso inner if you have a lot of honor EXP. So let's just count it in. So 5 bill for meso gear, 1 bill for meso inner ability, 4 bill for about 80% drop gear. Again, we're estimating it at about 1 bill per item. Cubing wise, you want to have your WSE potentials kind of have 2-line magic attack or 1-line magic attack at least. I would say 2-line magic attack, and that could be from 10 to 15 bill. That also pretty RNG. Let's say 15. So far we have 5 plus 4 plus 1, so that's 10 plus 15, so that's 25 build. And then you also want to cube your belt, shoulder, cape, gloves, heart, and your CRA stuff a little bit. So that can come up to about 18 to 20 bill if we estimate. So what was that? Belt, shoulder, cape, boot, glove, heart, CRA. So that's 9 items. If we say that's about 2 bill each per item, which is pretty generous or pretty conservative. Let's just use the conservative estimate, which is 20 bill. So in total, you're talking about 30 bill for cubing. Now, and we also need to talk about flaming and maybe 12 starring some armors, maybe 17 starring your weapon, depending on how far you want to go. I don't think 17 starring items is necessary, but if you want to, let's just use it for the sake of argument that you add some flaming and star some items, and that costs you about 10 bill. Okay, So that's about a total of 50 bill. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of mesos. That's like 50 weeks of just the daily quests and stuff like that. Should you make a Akana farmer? Here's some short answers. If you are casually playing Maple and you grind or farm less than 30 hours a month, no, don't bother. The amount of time that you're going to have to spend on Akana to make up the mesos that you lose by spending 50 bill on it in the first place, the investment, is going to be significantly longer. And during that time, you could be farming on your main and training your main up to a higher level. And that might be more beneficial to you. Otherwise, I would say, yes, you should. I mean, this is, assuming that you don't mind playing Akana. Okay, long answer. Should you make Akana? So the biggest hindrance to making Akana farmer is the barrier to entry. So if we were to use the conservative / the high estimate of 50 bill for you to set up Akana for it to be ready to farm, then the benefits of farming on Akana should outweigh the benefits of using your main to farm within a certain time period so that you can pay off the 50 bill and then start making more efficiency, right? So if you don't pay off the 50 bill, then making Akana doesn't make sense. So how long does it take to make up that 50 bill? And you have to decide whether that period of time is too much time or if it's worth spending that extra time. So your investment, will your investment pay off in a reasonable amount of time to you? So for my example, I'm going to use my Adele that I'm currently training to 250 in LP1. And I get about 400 mil per hour with 120 mesos obtained, 123 mesos obtained. And on my Akana, I make about 650 mil per hour. We're talking clean rates here with just 120% mesos obtained, 123 mesos obtained. So if we were to compare clean rates, my Akana makes about 250 mil extra when compared to my Adele. We're not bringing into consideration wealth acquisition potions because that is a multiplicative and actually will make the number bigger. But for kicks and giggles, we're just going to use the clean rates, the difference between the clean rates. And my Akana makes an extra 250 mil compared to my Adele. So how does this stack up long term? So 250 mil, if you divide that by 50 bill, that means our which is our initial investment, If we were to divide that, we get 0.5% return on our initial investment per hour. That's kind of small. But what does this mean? This means that if I were to farm for 200 hours, I will make back that mesos that I initially invested. This doesn't account for the fact that you'll be getting more nodes and more droplets from your increased mobbing efficiency. If I make 250 mil more, which means I'm killing more monsters in that time per hour, so I get more chances of getting nodes and droplets. On top of that, by investing 50 bill into Akana, I also start to gain an extra weekly bossing mule. Putting it all together, how long will it take for you to make back the 50 bill initial investment? So we're going to make an assumption here that you're farming 30 hours a month. If you don't farm 30 hours a month, then it almost doesn't make sense for you to use Akana because you could just farm on your main with wild totems, right? We talked about that initially. So let's say you farm 30 hours a month and you do weekly bosses every week. So every month, 30 hours times 250 mil that you would get extra on your Akana, or that I would get extra on my Akana versus on my Adele. So 30 times 250 mil means 7.5 bill profits a month. And, in a month, so that's 4 weeks, I do weekly bosses, that's 400 mil every week. That gives me about 1.6 bill. That gives you a total profits per month of 9.1 bill. So that means I get a break-even point of 5.5 months to make back my 50 bill. Now, 5.5 months is relatively little considering, I've been playing for 3 years and I farm more than 30 hours a week. I farm more than 30 hours a month. I personally, if I were to use a real scenario, I personally farm 10 hours a week to use up all my Meso coupons. That gives me 40 hours a month, which means my monthly extra on top of what I would normally get on farming on Akana would be 11.6 bill. So my break-even point is about 4.3 months. Now, if you want to be even more meticulous and say that, since I can only farm 34 hours with wild totems, technically, I get 6 extra hours of full gains on my Kana, which means I would be 34 hours a month with the 250 mil extra profits over my Adele, and the 6 hours that my Adele cannot make that 400 mil. Let's say I just don't farm on my Adele because I don't have wild totems. 6 hours times 650 mil, which is the clean rates for my Kana, is like the full profits. I get that for free. Plus 4 times 400 mil, which is the same. That puts me at 14 bill profits, which means my break-even point is really 3.5 months. And I'm making way more nodes. I'm making more drops per hour. And, it adds up. So now, is it worth for you to make a Kana farmer? Is it going to be more advantageous for you? I would say if you don't use up your wild totems, it doesn't really make sense for you to make a Kana farmer. So just keep training your main to 275, since, droplets are going to drop in Tenebris soon, like in about a month. And you can just spend the money that you make to support your own progression, and that should be fine. However, if you plan on doing 5-set arcanes, first of all, you probably don't even need my advice here. You should be Kana farming, because you can't really get arcane droplets outside, like after you get to Esfera. So if you're going to be training and not suiciding your main, which if you're suiciding your main, something's wrong already, then yeah, if you plan on going at 5-set arcanes, you should be using a Kana farmer. I'm not even going to talk about that. Okay. If the math that I worked up makes sense to you, if you have issues with my math, or if you find that if I estimated something wrong, feel free to let me know. If you think the initial investment is not 50 bill and is 100 bill, you can just take my math and multiply that by 2. So break-even point of 3.5 months or 5.5 months, multiply that by 2. That's still not that bad. It's less than a year for you to make up the 50 bill. And on top of that, you're kind of future-proofing yourself in case they ever do remove wild totems and Kishin, and now you have like an extra bossing mule. Anyways, if you disagree with these Saucy opinions, feel free to leave a comment below, or you can catch me on my Twitch streams, linked below. I'll see you guys later.